Hey, what's going on, team? It's Ricky with TechBud Solutions. So before we go ahead and get started, just wanted to do a quick little recap on my overall day. Altogether on the day, all just day trades. As you can see, my first trade taken at 6:47 a.m. And then my last position at 10:40. So altogether, $1,024.20 profit. A majority of that came from DWT, but I'm going to talk a little bit more very quickly about, why did I have such a huge focus on DWT? To keep it super simple, I actually caught such a small portion of what DWT had to offer. In yesterday's video, I talked about the importance of understanding direction and why, if something is showing signs of a consistent descending pattern, knowing how you can still make a profit. So when crude oil aggressively sells off, as we're seeing happening right now, it's very easy to identify that, hey, crude oil is not an ascending uptrend pattern. It continues to make lower lows. So the inverse ETN, which is DWT, is then making higher highs. And that's exactly, if you move on over to the Learn Time Profit Discord chat, this is where I share my ideas to the Learn Time Profit group, where I talk about /CL, and its direction and having a huge focus on that and making it super easy for people to understand, to kind of go with the flow and to not overcomplicate it, right? The same thing kind of happened when I took my position on DGAS. DGAS was showing signs of an uptrend pattern, and although I took a very small trade, it was very simple because natural gas was showing signs of a descending pattern. One of the things that I had a huge focus on today was trading with a much smaller dollar amount. None of my trades exceeded over $70,000 per trade. So my position size was anywhere from around $40,000 to $70,000, making me feel ultimately much more comfortable when taking my position, even if the direction was in my favor. So now that we talked about how I made a little bit over $1,000 profit today, let's go ahead and talk a little bit more about if you're made for day trading. So I don't know if you guys have ever wondered of what type of personalities does it take for someone to excel in certain careers, right? I always thought of, like, when you think about an accountant visually and with their personality, what do you think of that person and their traits to be? I think about someone that is very structured, very disciplined, that is very numbers oriented, that was always on schedule. They work with numbers all day and they excel, and for a lot of accountants, that's their true passions. They get so excited with their work. But for some other people, that could be viewed as extremely draining. And the reason that I'm saying this is because I get asked the question so often, right? Of how do I stay so motivated every single day? And to think about it, what is it that I do every single day? A lot of my mornings deal with either having to wake up during pre-market hours as early as 4 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, and I can be trading for hours. And what does trading consist of? I'm looking at a computer screen all day, right? I'm usually spending time in my trading room all by myself with not much interaction. And ask yourself, is that something that you think that you would be able to put up with? I wanted to give you guys a little bit more of a background on how I was raised and how I think, because of how I was raised, it wired me in a way that I just naturally work well with the market. So if you've ever asked yourself while you're watching me trade live, how do I stay so patient? How am I so consistent? How is it that I'm able to stay so motivated? I think that this video can give you a little bit of a better understanding on my upbringing and why I think I was not built to day trade, but just I can put up with it and I don't get as bored as maybe the average person. So let's go ahead and get right to it. So one of the things that I wanted to start off with, and one of the things that I want you guys to know, is I was raised in a very Hispanic culture, to say the least. My parents are both immigrants from Mexico, and I was brought up with the idea that family is everything and there's no such thing as true friends. And regardless if you agree or disagree with that, those were the principles that I was raised from. And what I take away from that was kind of looking back at my childhood versus maybe some of my friends or coworkers now, that I wasn't able to really have a social life outside of going to school. When I was at school, I would say I was social, that, I had a good group of friends. They were very close friends at those times. And I really did enjoy socializing. So I would not say that I was an introvert by any means. But one of the things that I was not allowed to do was I was never allowed to sleep over anybody's house. all towards, I think my first sleepover was my senior year in high school, and it's because I snuck out for a high school party and I was too scared to go home because it was so late. And at that point, again, I was 18 already, so I've developed quite a bit. But one of the things that I do remember was I grew up with an older sister and a younger sister, and these are the people that were actually in my household, and my older sister ended up moving out shortly after I got into my teenage years. So if anything, I really just grew up with my little sister. And what that did for me was I didn't really spend too much time with my family, right? I didn't spend too much time with my little sister. I wasn't huge into video games, and I just spent a lot of time in my room. And what I did with my room, and the reason that I'm kind of looking back, and the first business that I started, if you guys aren't aware of it, it's like this little fingerboard company where they're pretty much little skateboards for your fingers. They're viewed as tech decks, but wooden tech decks, and you would make them with veneer, you would mold them, and it would be a lot of tedious work because you had to sand them down, you had to do the holes, and it just took time, and maybe the average teenager would not spend so much time and obsess about that specific work when they're just getting into those teenage years. But I really don't think I was given any other option. I mean, I could have really been into video games, and maybe I really would have done well with that. But altogether, I was not given the option to spend time and sleep over, or any really have a real social life outside of my family and going to school. Therefore, I was kind of in my own little bubble when I would go home. And what I just decided to spend my time doing was, of course, the different things that I've already spoken about. And the reason that I'm talking about that is I spent so much time in my head, and it really wired me in a way that I was okay. And I was okay with putting up with very tedious work of working with my hands or working with these little fingerboards that allowed me to, for the average person, spend a lot of time doing very boring things. And it's not that I am weird or anything like that. It's just like I spent a lot of my time in my very early years doing that. So as I grew older, it just became second nature. And now moving towards when I decided to move from California to Arizona, I kind of asked the question of like, why was I okay with spending so much time working? I was still, getting better when it came down to my trading. I was working full time. I was going to school full time, and I was in a relationship. So the amount of time that I dedicated to my work is, I just remember all I focused on was work and sleep. And that's what I spent my time doing. My free time was not time spent with friends, as I didn't really have any here in Arizona because I had no family members, I had no friends. I spent all my time in learning other ways on how to make money, and that's what I really enjoyed. I didn't need to spend time with other people to feel fulfilled. Again, it doesn't mean that I'm any weirder than any other person. It just means that I'm able to still feel some form of enjoyment while just spending time with myself and those in the sense that I really do care about. And now if you think about my work, and this is, again, people sometimes I think that my overall daily routine, because of certain maybe lifestyle videos that I post from time to time, can be viewed as very exciting. But think about it. I wake up very early, which is not very attractive for a lot of people. I spend a lot of time by myself looking at computer screens and waiting for an opportunity to present itself. Think about it. That's not very attractive. On top of that, after I'm done with this work, I have other different projects or businesses that I work with my fellow teammates to try to improve on. And again, it's just work. And yeah, it's nice. I have nice cars. I like driving them when I get food, but I don't have friends outside of my team that I associate myself with. I literally spend all day at my house. If I do leave my house, it's either to go get food or to go to the gym. And other than that, there's very few times that I do leave my house. And if it is, it's probably a work-related thing. So altogether, what I'm trying to express is, I think it's because of my upbringing and how I was really not allowed to do much because of how I was raised, really wired me in a way where I was just able to put up with very tedious work for long periods of time and not get bored. It doesn't mean that I'm any smarter. It doesn't mean that I'm any weirder than any of you. It just means that that was how I was raised and ended up being wired. So now when it comes down to the field that I excel in, when it comes down to day trading in the stock market, a lot of you guys ask, how do I stay so motivated? How do I stay so consistent? How do I stay so disciplined? It all comes down to, I think, my very early beginnings. And it's a series of best practices or habits that I began to incorporate into myself. And it doesn't mean that just because you don't have those habits now that you can't work on them. If anything, I believe it's like, what is it that they say, 67 days that it takes to develop a new habit. And the question that I wanted to leave you guys with is, yeah, I thought it would be cool to kind of share a little bit more about my background story on how I got started and why I think I resonate so well with the stock market. But what I'm here to do and to embrace you to do is to take time to maybe do a self-evaluation and kind of think about how you were raised or who it is that you are as a person now and what type of fields or careers that you would work well with. If you're kind of all over the place and you're very creative, maybe now you'll have a little bit more of a focus on pursuing certain fields that are a little bit more creative, right? If you're someone that might be viewed as a little bit more boring like myself and is okay with looking at screens for long periods of time and spending a lot of time in a sense almost by yourself, then maybe trading is not the worst option for you, right? I think you learn a lot when you begin to dedicate time to learn more about yourself. And maybe if you learn a little bit more about yourself, you'll have a little bit more of a better understanding of what it is that you want to pursue and where your true passion lies. I really do appreciate you guys' time. I hope that I earned your thumbs up in this video. If you guys have any comments, be sure to drop that down in the comment section. I do want to remind you that tomorrow is the crude oil report. It's my favorite day to day trade in the stock market. And I would love for you to tune on in and watch me trade live with the Learn Plan Profit team. If you're interested in learning how to trade and being able to watch me trade live every single day, dedicate some time, click that first link down below in the description and learn a little bit more about our Learn Plan Profit team to see if it's a good fit for you. If you guys are looking to join a free Facebook group, that second link below is going to do just that, and you can join the largest Facebook group for those who day trade in the stock market. Like always, continue working hard, continue following dreams, let your passion be what drives your success. Like always, let's make sure that we end the year on a green note. Take it easy, team.